If you watched my last video, you'll know I bought the Canon R50V as my beginner content creation camera. Now, after having this for about 2 months now, I have some thoughts. So before we get started, I want to talk about what even is the Canon R50V. It has a 24 megapixel APS-C CMOS sensor, which gives you a 1.6 times crop factor on full frame lenses. It has a fully articulating LCD touchscreen, and even includes color profiles like C-Log3 in your video settings. So with all of that, who is this camera for? I put together a list of 5 pros and 5 cons so that you can see if the R50V is right for you. Pro number 1, the price. For $650 for just the body alone, you get this tiny beast of a camera. And if you decide to go with the kit lens, the whole package is only $930. Now, comparing that to its main competitor, which is the Sony ZV-E10 II. So the body only for that camera costs a little over $1,000. And with the kit lens, it's about $1,200. So price is definitely pro number 1 for the R50V. Pro number 2, size and the weight of this camera. You can see the size of this camera and it absolutely fits into my hand, no problem. You get a full grip on it, especially when you have a cage on. And the weight of this camera with the battery and an SD card comes in about 370 grams, which is the same weight as the can of soda. Well, obviously the weight will go up depending on the lens you put on it, but starting off at this weight, it's hardly noticeable.
So if you've ever wanted to do like talking videos in the car or vlog in the car, maybe you wanted to do some like road trip type things, this camera is perfect for that. Now I currently have the camera mounted on the Ulanzi SC02 suction mount, and even with a cage on and the Tamron 11-20, I'm still getting great solid footage without thinking that my camera might fall. So because of that, I really think that the size of this camera is a huge plus.
Pro number 3, lenses. Up until recently, Canon was probably the worst mirrorless camera brand out there just because of their lens selection. But with lenses from third-party companies like Sigma and Tamron coming out now, you can get really good quality glass for a fraction of the price that Canon L series lenses go for. Pro number 4, Canon colors. So if you know anything about Canon cameras or cameras in general, you'll probably realize a pattern here. Most people will start off in the photography or the video space with a Canon camera. And even if people have switched over to brands like Sony, Nikon, Fuji, Lumix, whatever, people will probably always tell you there's something special about Canon colors. Canon's color science just has that very true-to-life look to it. And if you're someone who's not going to be doing any kind of color grading or color correcting, especially for video, you're going to be extremely happy with the way the Canon R50V renders colors, straight out of camera. Pro number 5, Canon Log3. So if you did watch my first video about what creator kit I would pick and what gear I would use, then you would know that something that was really important to me in picking a camera was finding something that gave me that option to color grade and color correct in post and make it easy for me. Being able to shoot in C-Log3 in the R50V is a game changer, especially at $650. So for anyone that doesn't know about C-Log3, it's pretty much a color profile that desaturates everything so that you can get more dynamic range, which means you get to retain more of the details and shadows and highlights when you're editing in post. And with that desaturation, you can really make sure that everything looks the way that you want if you decide to do that. Now, onto the cons. So con number 1 is definitely the battery. The battery that Canon decided to use in this little guy is the LPE17. Now, the thing about the LPE17 is that it is extremely small, so these things have a really bad tendency to die really fast. Now, if you compare the size of this to the battery from my R5 Mark II, which is the LPE6P, you can kind of see the difference there. Now, although this is a con, there is a very good workaround with this, which is aftermarket batteries. You can get a bunch of these tiny little batteries from all over the place, especially Amazon, for pretty cheap. The only thing I'd say about that is make sure you read the reviews before you buy any, because some of them are a little picky. The second con that I found of the R50V is that there's no EVF. So the thing about shooting video, especially on a camera that doesn't have an EVF, is if you're outside and it's extremely bright out, it's going to be really tough to see the screen on this thing. So having an EVF is always really helpful, especially if you're just trying to check focus. I definitely use the EVF on my R5 Mark II, even when I'm shooting videos. So no EVF, big con. Con number 3 of the R50V is its poor low light performance. So one of the things that I definitely struggled with when I first got the R50V, especially shooting in C-Log 3, was that the base ISO for this is 400. Now 400 ISO is pretty great for shooting in broad daylight, so you don't have to crank your ISO super high, or in a controlled lighting situation. But once the sun starts to go down, or you get caught in an environment where it's pretty dimly lit, you might run into some issues. Now, maybe this is just a con for me because I might be spoiled with the R5 Mark II and also having used and owned an A7S III and FX3. Maybe I'm spoiled a little bit, but having a base ISO of only 400 is pretty rough sometimes. Con number 4 of the R50V is definitely something that really bugs me with every single camera that has it. And that problem is right here, which is this tiny little HDMI port. So the R50V uses a micro HDMI port, and if you know anything about micro HDMI, you'll know that they pretty much do nothing but let cables break on you. So if you have a monitor attached to this thing and you're trying to record externally or just monitor your footage at all, you gotta be really careful with that cable. So con number 4 actually has 2 tiny little parts to it. I think Canon would be able to fix this through firmware, but I'm not super sure. Essentially, when you have any kind of monitoring setup like a Ninja 5 or what I'm using right now, the Axion Cimo Cine Nano? Cine, I don't know what this one is, but one of the, something to monitor just your video in general. You can't record to the SD card and retain control of the LCD screen, which makes absolutely no sense to me. So if you're trying to choose your focus point, or you need to change something really quick on the screen, you can't do it if you have a monitor set up. So essentially what that means is if you have that monitor set up, you have to use a monitor that can record into the monitor through something like an SSD. The only reasonable option for that is a Ninja 5, but even then the Ninja 5 is going for a couple $100, plus your memory is going to be another couple $100, plus something to read that SSD, another $100. So it gets pricey. So I just really wish Canon would fix this ASAP. Now my last and final con of the R50V is maybe a little nitpicky, but it's the battery and SD card location. The battery I have no real problem with, but the fact that the SD card is in the same spot as the battery makes it kind of a pain in the butt to change out. If you wanted to change out footage and change out cards, you have to open up the battery door in order to get your SD card out, which is, more than anything an annoyance. But so with all of that being said, who do I think the R50V is for? So I think the R50V is a great camera for anyone that wants to get into stuff that's more video focused without having to, break the bank and spend a couple $1,000s. Now with that being said, it's not a bad photo camera at all. It still has 24 megapixels, which you can take really good photos with. So hopefully all that information was helpful if you're trying to decide on whether or not you should pick up the Canon R50V, but those are just my pros and cons. Overall, I love the camera. I think it's a great deal, especially for the price, and I can't wait to shoot more stuff with it. So with that being said, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys at the next one. Peace.